Let's take time out and walk through the employee checklist. And remember, checklists are just good to have for everything you do. Standard operating procedures, checklists. That allows just really reminds you to do what you need to do. There's no way you can keep all of this in your head. So this is the employee checklist. And one of the other reasons you want to make sure you have this is not only to deliver what you need to be delivering, but it'll also help prevent lawsuits. Some of this information, if you don't have, will make you liable with the employee if something happens with the employee. And remember, most lawsuits are with employees. There's disgruntled employees. That's where most of the lawsuits are from. So let's go ahead and take a look at the employee file checklist. Okay, so we have the resume, including the name, address, and telephone number. So that's going to be pretty important. You have the resume, especially if there's anything happens and then you find out that some of the information they put on the resume is false. Well, that holds them liable more so than you. Person to call in case of an emergency. You definitely want something. You never know what's going to happen. I've had a few emergencies with my staff, nothing fatal or anything like that, definitely where they had to leave. And you just want to make sure you have somebody that you can contact in case something does happen to that employee. Copy of their driver's license. You obviously want to make sure they have a driver's license, especially if you have them drive. If you have them drive and this happens a lot, you'll have them pick something up at the store, or maybe you'll just flat out have them go to the store and pick up some supplies and come back, like toilet paper, cleaning equipment, stuff like that. Well, remember, when they're in their car going to get those items, you're on the hook for that. If they're in a car accident, that's a workers' compensation injury. So you're on the hook for that. So copy of the car insurance. That's why you want to make sure you've got that car insurance. If they are doing something for you and they don't have insurance, you're liable for that. They're in an accident, you'll get sued by the person that was in the accident with them because they were doing basically a worker's function. Car registration. So those are the reasons behind the car insurance and car registration. For operating chiropractic vehicles or personal vehicles of business. And that seems to happen all the time. A lot of times doctors will say, hey, get this on the way back or from lunch or whatever. That seems to happen more often than not. Or if they take the doctor's vehicle, you want to put your vehicle on what's called a personal property trust. And you would want to do that anyway, not just for your employee, because if it's not that's when it spreads to all your assets. If it's in a trust, the lawsuits stay within that trust. So number 4 is W-4 tax form, including exemptions. That's pretty standard. Number 5 is training certificates. Some of the, depending on what state you're in, you're required to have different certificates. Like here in Florida, you have to have a massage license to give a massage. So make sure, that whatever they're doing, they got the certifications and they're posted. Whether it's CA certifications, whether it's X-ray, like here in Florida, they also have an extra certifications for CAs that they can actually do more, like putting people on and off therapies without the doctor's direct supervision. So every state's different. Every state has their own little guidelines with the CAs. Same with X-ray certifications. Make sure, you see those certifications and they're posted. And then our massage license, don't just take it for granted that it's on their resume. Professional, and it's up to date. If those fall out of date, once again, you're the one that's going to be held and liable. Any of those certifications, if they fall out of date, You're the one that's going to be held liable if something happens with a patient. Now, if nothing happens with a patient, it's found out through a routine inspection, you'll be held liable to some degree. But if something happens with a patient and those are outdated, you're pretty much in trouble. You're going to be included in this. Professional license, professional malpractice insurance. That's why I always recommend to our doctors that they pay for malpractice insurance for the associate doctors, really, so it just doesn't lapse. And then number 7 is time cards. You never want time cards for full-time employees. They're very dehumanizing. You never want full-time employees having to sign in, sign out, stamp in, or stamp out. It is very impersonal and dehumanizing. So the only time you would do something like that is with a part-time employee. And I didn't even, with my part-time employees, I didn't even fool with that because it's so dehumanizing. So I know if they show up on time or not, and if they don't, I just make sure that I warn them about it. But those are very negative time cards. Federal employment, 19 employment eligibility verification form. That's real big in today's society with all the illegal immigrants. So you want to make sure that that's verified. And remember, you're liable when any of these people, if they're illegal, you're liable when there's a lawsuit against them in your office. And it's worse if they're illegal and there's a lawsuit. Now you're in significantly more trouble. Signed copy of employee manual. You definitely want to make sure you have the employee manual, and you definitely want a signed copy of it. Signed job responsibilities. As a matter of fact, I not only have them sign off on the manual, but some of the major parts of the manual, I want them to sign those individually, like the job responsibilities. I want to make sure that that is crystal clear. The work schedule, I want to make sure that's crystal clear. The assigned financial, anything dealing with money's got to be highly personalized and paid a lot of attention to. Signed financial agreements, wages, salary, bonus. So these are all included in the employee manual, but I have those documents individually signed because of the importance of those documents within the manual. Signed time off agreement, signed terms for immediate termination. That's real important that and again, in the employee manual, it lists all the basic terms for termination, but we want to make sure they've signed that also, not just signed, for the book itself, the employee book itself. Okay, some of the things that we're real big on, and if you do this, it'll solve a lot of problems, is I never let my staff members, of course, lying, stealing, cheating, those are obvious reasons to get fired. So we put that in there. But disclosing patients' personal information, those are total violations. Signed copy of a HIPAA associate agreement. Generally speaking, if they're part of the process of processing a patient, you don't really need somebody to sign. In other words, when you get a second opinion from an orthopedist and you send the records, they don't have to sign a HIPAA agreement. So this is really the HIPAA associate agreement. I mean, it is good to have it signed by your employees, definitely. That really has to do with people who may come in contact with the patient's personal information. Like, let's say you have a painter come in and they're going to paint the office. They've got to sign the HIPAA associate agreement. They may come in contact. They're not part of the people who process the patient, but now they're in a position where they may come across it. That's really what the HIPAA associate agreement's about. It's for that type of person. Documentation of vacation periods and absence from work, so that always gets documented. When you document it, you always want them to sign it. Requirement to notify any suspected fraud or wrongdoing. And that should be stated obviously to the staff members if they know of anything wrong, or they think any or suspect anything wrong, that they're required to tell you immediately. Physical requirements, if there's any lifting, the amount and frequency, sitting, standing durations. So if there's any physical requirements, that you've got to have that signed. Now, obviously, if there's a restriction, it's not just from the patient saying I got a restriction. So they have to have a doctor's orders signifying those restrictions. Doctor's verification of limits. Signature on negative work write-ups. So anytime you have a work write-up, you always have to have them sign it and date it. And one of the reasons you do that, now actually a couple of reasons. One is it lets them know, that they're out of line. They're not doing what they need to do, and what they did should not have been done. And it's a violation against the office manual. Now, if you've never had them sign a manual, you can't write them up. So it all starts with them knowing the rules and signing for the rules. That's where it all starts. And then if they do violate something, if it's something relatively significant, then I'll write them up. And all you're doing is just making a notice of what they did wrong, and you're having them sign it, and you're putting it in the employee file, and you keep a signature in your employee file. Now, the main reason you do that is you'll need 3 write-ups. When you fire somebody, you'll need 3 write-ups to fire somebody, and for them not to be able to go after unemployment insurance. So you're paying unemployment insurance premiums when you pay your quarterly statements, etc. Well, when people use it, your insurance premiums go up. So that's one of the reasons. And the other reason is, as soon as you write somebody up one time, I found it'll go one way or the other fast. Their attitude will really turn terrible, and you just won't even be able to keep them in the office from that point, or it'll really straighten them up. It goes one way or the other way real fast. You won't get to a second write-up. Okay, health insurance documents. So whatever those are, those go in the file. Retirement account documents go in the file. Personality profile documents go in the file. Okay, pre-employment test. And the typical pre-employment test we do besides personality is real simple: multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, alphabet filing. These are just really simple tests to get a feel for that person. Okay, basic computer skills. They don't have to be a computer wizard, but we definitely like them to know how to turn the computer on and off, how to use the computer keyboard, how to type, just the basics of typing. You will have a very restricted employee if they do not know how to type. Even if you put them in a non-typing position, it seems like, it's just hard to fathom a position where they don't need to get on a computer at all. So not knowing how to type will create a huge restriction in your business. Usually what happens is they'll be pecking around. It'll take too long. And then you'll say, here, let me have so-and-so do it to you. You'll have somebody else do it. And now you stop 2 positions from working. So that's not good at all. How to use the keyboard, how to email, how to use, just basic Word document, how to upload text or video, You know, those are the real basic ones that they need to know how to do. So, do they know how to upload text or video to the big five social media? And it's real easy to train them if they don't know how to do that. If they don't know how, if they're at least comfortable with a keyboard, it's real easy to show them how to upload videos to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest. There's even more social media sites now. Okay, evaluations are quarterly and annually. The quarterly, you're really only going to look at primary responsibilities. Are they doing what they need to be doing, their primary responsibilities? The annual evaluations, those are comprehensive. That's when you're going to, take an hour with the person and go into detail. You're going to go into primary and secondary responsibilities. You're going to go into work attendance, work attitude, attention to patient service factors, teamwork. So that's a whole checklist in itself. The evaluations, they themselves are a checklist. So the annual one's the big one, and you're setting expectations is what you're doing. You're letting them know what they're doing good. You're letting them know what they need work on, and you're quantifying it. You're giving them a degree. It could be an abstract number like, a 0 to 10, and you might say, okay, you're at 8 at this or whatever. So it could be abstract. At least it gives them guidelines. Everybody wants guidelines and directions. Everybody wants to know if they're doing good or bad, or how good or bad they're doing. Everybody. Continuing education hours and classes. Some of your employees are going to need those. Make sure that's in the employee file, signed and dated. Staff dress guidelines. I go into some offices and I have no clue who the employees are. No clue, just because they don't have dress guidelines. The employee goals, remember, I've said over and over, the single best thing you can do for that employee is sit down with them, go over their goals, and you help them achieve their goals. Now I covered this separately, but basically we're finding out what goals they have, and we're going to match their goal to the bonuses and all the potential ways of creating revenue in the business, not just their base salary, but their bonus. And so we basically show them this is what they need relative to the bonus, to get whatever you're tying to the bonus. Like, let's say it's new patients. Then you would need this amount of new patients over this amount of time to create this amount of bonus to get you this for your goal. That's the single greatest motivation you can do. That employee now sees that you're trying to help them. It's not just everything about your business. It's the best thing you can do for an employee is help them achieve their goal and tie it to the bonus productivity of them personally and the office. So how the position will help attain their goals, you've got to go over that. Sign a copy of the mission statement and purpose. So every office should have a mission statement and purpose. Why are you here? I mean, so many times doctors just hire employees. There's no mission statement, mission statement or purpose. And, that's not what keeps good employees. Good employees want a sense of mission. They want a sense that remember, money is the lowest form of motivation. And it's the most important when you're down in survival or security. But then it starts getting into personal gain, and then conviction, and then self-actualization. So all that stuff's good, money, but they all want to know that they're doing something bigger than just showing up for a paycheck. And that has everything to do with how the doctor talks. The doctor is always just talking about money, collections, and this, that. That's typically when the staff members think of the doctor as just an old money grubber. And then they don't really care for the office either. They could take it or leave it. But when you actually show not just all the basic things you need to do, to run your practice, but that's why I say it's so important that you cover a conviction piece at every staff meeting. You always want to show a patient how they're, how before and after, and how they're progressing, especially if it's a patient they referred. That gives tremendous satisfaction if they referred somebody, not just for the bonus, but then you explain, some of their initial findings, and then you show how they've improved, and then thank them. That's self-actualization. They'll stay for that way more than the money. And that's why I say it just needs to be that conviction part needs to be part of every staff meeting. It just needs to be, again, if these are not systems or checklists, you won't do them. That's why it's one of the checklists for the staff meeting, to kind of remind you to do it. So these are the main factors that you should be considering putting in. There's about 20 of them. You need to have these factors into your employee file.